Hello and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another Beauty 101 video. Today we are doing how to apply bronzer, and I'm going to show you how to apply cream cream bronzer, and powder bronzer. So if you want to learn how to apply cream or powder bronzer, then stay tuned. Okay, so I decided that I'm going to show you how to apply cream bronzer and powder. I don't know why that gets me all tongue-tied, and powder bronzer in the same video because I realized from last week's video when I showed you how to apply foundation with a fluffy brush that I also want to show you guys how to apply foundation with a beauty sponge, and I feel like I should have just done it in the same video. I don't know. Anyways, for the sake of like not making you wait forever for each step, I decided that I'm gonna do cream and powder bronzer in the same video. So that's what we're doing today. And because you can layer the two if you want, I do sometimes. For the sake of this video, I'm going to layer cream and powder. You don't have to. I don't always do that. Usually I just do one or the other, but you can layer. But I swear to God, every time I start filming, my dogs start barking. Okay, so I've obviously already done my foundation. If you want to see how I apply my foundation, then definitely check out my last video from this series. I showed you guys how to apply foundation with a fluffy brush because that's my favorite way to apply, and I always get so many questions when people see me using a big fluffy brush to apply my liquid foundation. So definitely check that out. But I have already done my foundation and my eye makeup. All I need to do is my bronzer and highlight and blush, and I'll be done, and lips of course. But let's start with cream bronzer. Today I'm going to be using this one from Milk Makeup. This is the Baked Matte Bronzer. It is a little stick, and I would definitely consider it like a cream product. It's not necessarily, it's obviously not a powder, but let's start with this. And like I said, normally I wouldn't wear cream and powder. Sometimes I do. Actually, I do that because sometimes I just wear one or the other. But when I do layer them, which is rare, but I do it sometimes, the reason why I would apply cream and then powder is to like, the powder will set the cream, you'll see in a minute. But for the sake of this video and showing you both techniques, I'm going to layer the two today, but I don't necessarily do that often. But when I apply my cream bronzer, I used to take the little cream stick, sounds kind of gross, and I would just like draw it onto my face. But I realized that doing that applies the product too heavy, and then when I go to like blend it out, I found that it would like move my foundation too much, and I didn't like the way that looked. It ended up looking like muddy. So I decided to start applying the product to my brush. And the brush I'm using today is, it's like a fluffy angled brush. Okay, it's kind of fluffy, but it's still angled, if you could see that. And I like to use angled brushes for this part of my face because it just fits better. I just like this one for cream. So what I do is I take this little bronzer stick and I like paint it onto my brush just directly like that. And a little bit of this product goes a long way in my opinion. So what I do is I just paint it directly onto my brush, and then I just start stamping it where I want it to go. As you can see, it's going on lightly. I used to apply my bronzer super heavy on my face, but I find that it gives me a muddy look when I put too much, so I don't like to put that much. And I also place it, my placement is important. So the hollows of my cheeks are right here. You want to place it so that it accentuates your features or your cheekbones specifically. And instead of placing it directly into the hollows of my cheeks, which are about right here, I place it a little bit above that just to give my face a more lifted look. And then I just start tapping the brush onto my skin to just really blend it, because I don't want like a harsh line. I mean, if you're into that, then do you, but personally I don't think the harsh line looks very good. It could end up looking like kind of dirty, you know, like you have dirt on your face or something. So I personally like to have a more blended look, and basically what I'm doing is like creating a shadow on my face because I use my bronzer to like contour and to warm up my face, but I'm basically creating like a shadow effect to accentuate my cheekbones and to make me look more like Snatch. So I'm gonna look more, my features are gonna look a little more sharp. And the point of bronzer is to kind of just like, I don't wanna say carve out your face, but just define your features a little bit. And that's what I'm doing. So this is how I would apply my cream bronzer. So I have bronzer on this side of my face. I don't have it on this side of my face. Can you see the difference? I know it's kind of hard, but in my opinion, bronzer makes such the difference because without it, I feel like your face can look a little like flat, and I like to add some depth and dimension to my face and accentuate my features in the right way. And you can kind of manipulate your features a little bit with bronzer and using it to contour. And then also it just helps you look a little bit tanner, a little bit more lively, bring some color to your face. So I'm just tapping this product in. I'm not rubbing it, I'm just tapping with my brush. And then it's just going to accentuate my cheekbones by giving a little bit of like a shadow effect here. And then I would continue to take the cream onto my brush like so, and less is more. And then I always put bronzer up here along my hairline. This, I have a big forehead, so this kind of helps my forehead not look so gnarly. And it also warms up my whole face. And again, I'm just tapping the brush. I'm not rubbing or swiping, I'm just tapping. And as you can see, it gives like a nice shadow, a little bit of depth to this portion of my face. And then I would just place this in the usual areas that I contour. I also contour along my jawline just to accentuate my jaw a little bit. I like to create a shadow down here under my chin because I have a little bit of a double chin, don't we all? And I want to try and eliminate that with like some visual effects, aka contour. So I'm just tapping the bronzer along my jawline as well. And then I do take the brush and do like swiping motions once I get to this portion, like onto my neck, just to drag it down and blend it with my foundation down here. And then usually I'll like look in the mirror, kind of just make sure everything looks nice and even, especially the color. I don't want to look like darker on this side, lighter on, you know, just trying to even everything out so I look as symmetrical as possible, even though your face is asymmetrical. Okay, so don't worry if it doesn't look perfectly even. And that is how I apply my cream bronzer. Now I'm going to show you how I would apply my powder bronzer. So for powder bronzer, I'm going to be using this one from Wet n Wild. This is the Wet n Wild Color Icon bronzer in the shade Sunset Striptease. This has a tiny bit of shimmer in it. I don't typically like shimmery bronzers because when you have shimmer on your face, it tends to accentuate the texture in your skin, which I don't necessarily like, but I really like this specific bronzer because the shimmer in it is super light. It's almost non-existent, but it is there. And I feel like the shimmer in this one gives more of like a glow to your skin versus like a highlight. I don't know, it's just such a It's just such a subtle shimmer. Say that 10 times fast. So it's not like too crazy looking. I don't know, it's just a good one, and Wet n Wild is OG, it's affordable, it's great, it's reliable. I love Wet n Wild products. And this is a powder, so I'm gonna use a different brush. The brush I'm using is this one here. This is from Benefit Cosmetics, and it's more of like a domed fluffy brush. I like it because it's not really pointed, but it obviously has more of a pointy tip. And so I feel like it makes it easy to get into the areas that I want to get into. So I take some bronzer onto my brush, kind of make sure I coat the top part of it pretty well. And then I will tap out my brush because I don't want harsh lines. So I don't want a ton of product on my brush, just enough to like be visible, you know? And then I would take it basically in the same area. And I do use a kind of like a swiping blending motion. So I am rubbing this on my skin. I'm not stamping or tapping with this one. I'm just blending in circular motions, and I'm using a very light hand, okay? You don't want to like press the brush into your face because that'll give you a harsher look and it'll cause it to look a little bit muddy. So very light product on the brush because I tapped it out, and then very light swiping blending motions with your hand. And I'm placing it in the same area that I placed the cream bronzer because this is where I would also place my powder. And again, it's just above the hollows of my cheeks. And then sometimes I will drag it out onto the rest of my face just really lightly. I'm using swiping circular blending motions with a very light hand. And the reason I would drag it onto the rest of my face is just to blend it with everything else. And because I did put the powder over the cream is going to grab the powder because it's kind of sticky. I don't want to say it's wet, but it's sticky. It's not like dry like powder. So it is going to grab the powder that I just placed on top of it, which is going to make it look a little darker than the powder would look had I just done powder. If you just do powder alone, it's going to look a lot softer. But I'm okay with this look today for the purpose of this video. And then again, I would tap my brush in the little pan, tap off the excess product, and I would again apply bronzer to my forehead. I'm kind of just placing the brush and swiping it outwards, okay? So I'm doing quick swiping motions around my forehead area, and this is what it looks like. I've applied bronzer to this side of my face. It doesn't look as intense over here because I haven't applied the powder bronzer yet, but as you can see, this is how I would apply my powder bronzer. The gardeners are right outside my window, so if you hear that lawnmower, I'm sorry. But I would basically apply the powder in all the same areas that I applied the cream, again along my jawline. You want to be careful here. Usually when I apply bronzer to my jawline, it's the last step, and I don't dip my brush again. I'm just using whatever is left on my brush to dust along my jawline because you don't want to create that dark line in this area because it just doesn't look good, okay? You want to create like a shadow, but not like a solid line, you know what I mean? And you have to be careful with bronzer. I like to say less is more. You know, start with less, and then if you need more, add more, because sometimes bronzer can end up looking a little muddy. See, because I applied the cream underneath and then the powder, I think it looks a tiny bit muddy right here. It's a little too dark, but that's okay. So, and that's why I don't really wear cream bronzer too much. I do sometimes, but I reach for powder more often because I feel like the cream can look a little bit muddy sometimes if you're not careful. And then I also like to take the powder, and I don't like carve out my nose, but I will just dust it along the tip of my nose because my nose here, I like to say it's very bulbous. I hate that word because it sounds kind of gross, but I just have like a really big round nose. I do. And so I like to try and slim her out a little bit by just dusting a little bit of contour here just so she looks less bulbous and round. But I just take my brush and I just swipe it like this. I don't like to take it up here on the bridge of my nose because I feel like the bridge of my nose is fine, but I will take it right here on the tip just to create like a slimmer looking nose. How you contour your face though is a little bit selective because everyone's face shape is different, and maybe you won't want to place bronzer in the same areas that I would place it. So you kind of have to play around with it a little bit, but you can take my technique and tweak it however you need to fit your face and your needs. But this is how I would apply. And then one more trick that I wanted to show you guys. I want to show you how I give my eyes kind of like a lifted look with bronzer because I really like this trick. So I would take powder. I wouldn't necessarily use cream for this, but I have before and it works almost just as well. But I like to take this big fluffy brush. This is the Morphe M510 brush, and I dip it in my bronzer again. Tap it out, of course. Usually, I'll show you this when I show you the video on how to apply eyeshadow, but usually I'll take bronzer and apply it as eyeshadow to kind of contour my eyes and give my eyes a better lifted shape. I have very round eyes, okay? But I like to manipulate the shape of my eye using bronzer and my eyeshadow and lashes, but the first step usually is bronzer on my eyes, and the most important step would be taking it on this very outer corner, okay? I take the bronzer on this very outer corner and I drag it all the way up here, like way past my brow, like into my temples. And I even take it like, okay, so here's the tail of my brow. I'll take it up just a little bit and drag the bronzer like past my brow. Does that make sense? Kind of like dragging it like from the arch to this bottom corner of my lash line, like bronzer all in this area. Does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining that in a way that you can understand. So if you can see the placement of my brush, I'm literally taking bronzer like out in this whole area. So you can kind of see that shadow, and it just gives my eyes like a lifted effect. So that's what I like to do with this big fluffy brush, is just really drag my bronzer out into my temples. And like I said, I would normally do this before my eyeshadow, and I did do it before my eyeshadow, but for the sake of this video, I'm showing you again, even though I've already placed my eyeshadow down. And if you do this before eyeshadow, you can really blend your eyeshadow into this contour, but as you can see, I'm still doing it even over top my eyeshadow, and it still looks nice. And I just love how it gives my eyes like a lifted effect. So hopefully that makes sense. But that is how I apply my bronzer. I'm gonna do the rest of my face off camera and then I'll be right back. Alright guys, and that is how I apply my cream and powder bronzer. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it a little bit helpful and informative. I hope I made sense. I hope I'm a good teacher. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already following me. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to say, but I can't think of it right now. I don't know. I don't know. But thank you guys so much for watching. I think next week's video I'll be doing blush. So stay tuned for that. I hope you're liking these little beauty videos. I'm having so much fun just getting back down to the basics and teaching you guys these little steps. So I hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.